The Weinstein Company had been trying to finalize a deal that ultimately collapsed. Alexander Kerner, Getty Images, Los Angeles. The Weinstein Company said that it would file for bankruptcy following the collapse of sale talks with an investor group, extending the damage from sexual misconduct allegations against Harvey Weinstein, its co-owner and a one-time force in Hollywood. The beleaguered film and television studio said in a statement late Sunday that it had failed to reach a deal with a group led by Maria Contreras-Sweet, who ran the Small Business Administration under President Barack Obama. The group had offered to pay roughly $275 million for the Weinstein Company, plus the assumption of $225 million in debt. While we recognize that this is an extremely unfortunate outcome for our employees, our creditors and any victims, the board has no choice, the company's statement said. Over the coming days, the company will prepare its bankruptcy filing with the goal of achieving maximum value in court. The Weinstein Company board, a three-member group that includes its co-founder Bob Weinstein, also released a sharply worded letter it sent earlier on Sunday to Ms. Contreras-Sweet and one of her primary backers, Ron Burkle, the billionaire investor. In the letter, the board members said they had worked tirelessly in recent days to meet virtually every demand you imposed, including waiving a breakup fee if a deal was not consummated. However, Ms. Contreras-Sweet's team, according to the letter, had not come through with promised interim funding to keep the 150-employee studio operating while a deal was completed. The letter also said that she had proposed new sale conditions that could add many months or longer to the closing process. Late last night, you returned to us an incomplete document that unfortunately does not keep your promises, the letter said. That is regrettable, but not in our power to change. Representatives from Ms. Contreras-Sweet's team did not respond to a request for comment. The Weinstein Company has been trying to avoid bankruptcy since October, when reports by the New York Times and the New Yorker revealed decades of sexual harassment allegations against Harvey Weinstein. To stay afloat while it pursued a sale, the studio at first sought loans from private equity firms. When those efforts failed, the Weinstein Company sold off North American distribution rights to Paddington 2, an animated movie that was released in January. Through a spokeswoman, Harvey Weinstein has repeatedly denied any allegations of non-consensual sex. Maria Contreras-Sweet led an investor group negotiating to buy the Weinstein Company. Earl Wilson's New York Times. The Weinstein Company's announcement on Sunday came 2 weeks after Eric T. Schneiderman, New York's Attorney General, filed a lawsuit against the studio and its fraternal founders alleging that they repeatedly violated state and city laws barring gender discrimination, sexual harassment, sexual abuse and coercion. The lawsuit, based on a continuing investigation into the Weinstein Company's internal dealings, was accompanied by a public call from Mr. Schneiderman for assurance that a sale to Ms. Contreras-Sweet's group had three components: adequate compensation for victims, protections for the studio's remaining employees and no financial reward for those who enabled or perpetuated Mr. Weinstein's misconduct, that brought the sale talks to a sudden halt. In the wake of the lawsuit and Mr. Schneiderman's public statements, the Weinstein Company fired its president, David Glasser, for cause. The lawsuit did not name Mr. Glasser, but it referred to him by his title and said that the sale of the company could result in employees reporting to some of the same managers who failed to investigate Mr. Weinstein's conduct to protect female employees from him. In a statement, a lawyer for Mr. Glasser, Eve Wagner, said that Mr. Glasser planned to sue for wrongful termination. On Wednesday, Ms. Contreras-Sweet and Mr. Burkle met with Mr. Schneiderman in New York and made progress toward persuading him that their purchase would satisfy his three stated priorities, according to two people briefed on the matter who asked for anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly. In particular, the sale was to include tens of millions of dollars for victims and a mediation process for reaching settlements. The Weinstein brothers, who jointly own about 42% of the studio, would have received no cash from the proposed sale, with other equity holders also wiped out. Amy Spitalnik, the press secretary for Mr. Schneiderman, declined to comment on Sunday night. MSC Contreras-Sweet's group had pulled ahead of other bidders like Lionsgate by promising to keep the studio intact and the staff employed. Other bidders were interested only in pieces of the Weinstein Company, namely its 277 film library, which includes titles like The Imitation Game and Django Unchained. The Weinstein Company also has a television division that makes Project Runway, and is working on a pair of dramas for the Paramount Network, which is owned by Viacom. Other assets include a handful of unreleased movies, including Polaroid, a teenage horror movie, The War with Grandpa, a comedy starring Robert De Niro, The Upside, a comedy starring Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston, and The Current War, a period drama. The Weinstein brothers first came to prominence with Miramax in 1989, the year they helped activate the indie film boom with Sex, Lies and Videotape. They sold Miramax to Disney in 1993 and left in 2005 to form the Weinstein Company. They unsuccessfully dabbled inside businesses, including a fashion label, but eventually found their film footing with releases like The King's Speech, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 2010. Even so, recent years have been difficult for the studio. The Weinsteins have not had a main hit at the North American box office since 2013, when Lee Daniels, The Butler, took in $116.6 million. The last time a Weinstein film was a force at the Oscars was in 2012, when the artist collected 5 awards, including Best Picture. A version of this article appears in print on February 26, 2018, on page B3 of the New York edition, with the headline "Weinstein Co. says it will file for bankruptcy as sale falters."